Welcome to the New Warehouse Podcast, the podcast for those that are curious about what's possible inside their four walls. Before we get into this episode, let's hear a word from our sponsors that make this all possible. If you're thinking about voice picking, think EPG, the team behind Lydia Voice, the industry's #1 voice picking solution. Warehouses rely on diverse teams, but language barriers can slow everything down. Lydia Live Translation empowers warehouse staff to communicate naturally in over 40 languages in real time. No template training, no dialect detection headaches. See Lydia Live Translation in action at Modex this April in booth B11122. That's booth B11122, or visit epg.com to learn more. Are you drowning in pre-sales engineering? Struggling with resource allocation? Losing opportunities because it takes too long to respond? Quoting shouldn't take weeks. Every delay slows momentum and puts revenue at risk. Today's automation buyers expect instant answers, clear options, and numbers they trust. iAutomate helps system integrators and solution providers create a customer-centric digital buying journey and deliver data-driven concepts and budgets, instantly accelerating pipeline velocity, increasing win rates, and turning speed into revenue. That's sales automation. Learn more at iautomate.app. That's iautomate.app. Running a 3PL with LPG or diesel forklifts? Fuel volatility, emissions, noise, and downtime add up fast. Big Joe Forklifts offers a smarter path with lithium-ion trucks featuring integrated batteries and onboard charging. No fuel handling, no tank swaps, fewer interruptions. Their Pulse telematics platform gives leaders real-time diagnostics, energy insights, and downtime prevention. You can see it all at Modex in booth 9313. That's booth 9313. And a special bonus, if you say Kevin Lawton sent me, you'll get an exclusive swag package. Check them out, booth 9313. That's Big Joe Forklifts. There's no guessing when it comes to operations. We need the truth. Surgere provides that truth when it comes to your most critical systems and operations. Trusted to bring the truth with 99.9% data accuracy to some of the world's largest companies like Honda, Toyota, DHL, Whirlpool, Cat, Eli Lilly, and more. When you need truth in your warehouse operations, bring in Surgere. Get the truth at surgere.com. That's SURGERE.com. Is your fulfillment operation ready for the next surge in demand? Don't wait until productivity stalls to think about automation. Get proactive and talk to Ocado Intelligent Automation to find out when to start your automation journey, how smart software orchestration accelerates performance, and how AMRs like Chuck scale across sites and seasons. Learn how flexible deployment, ongoing support, and real scalability help you meet your customer expectations before peak hits. Head to OcadoIntelligentAutomation.com to start your warehouse automation journey and find them in booth B10119. That's B10119 at Modex. Thank you to our sponsors, and now let's get to the podcast.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, we are going to talk to Dave Gutierrez, who is the Vice President of Sales at OLIMP Warehousing, and they are providing on-demand warehousing and logistics services. So we're going to dive into a little bit on what that's all about, what that means, and how it benefits warehouses, 3PLs that are out there, companies that maybe can leverage their services, and some of the use cases for that as well. So, Dave, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to get you on. Happy to talk about this topic and learn a little bit more about OLIMP Warehousing. So why don't we kick it off there? Kind of tell us a brief overview of what is OLIMP and what do y'all do?
Yeah, absolutely. So OLIMP is, at its core, it's a digital marketplace to connect available warehouse capacity with people who need it, on-demand warehouse services, right? So most of our customer base, probably 90%, is in the brokerage and carrier space, where where they're looking for like same-day on-demand services. So literally, hey, I just went to Costco to make a delivery. I've got 3 pallets that are tipped over or not wrapped correctly. They won't take it. I need somebody to help me out, get this stuff restacked, reworked, so that I can take it back rather than go all the way back to my shipper and deal with it that way, right? So they'll come to our platform. We've got a customer-facing RFQ portal where they'll put in the information they're working with and say, okay, it's 3 pallets needs rewrapping and dry freight, standard pallets, whatever. They hit submit, and within minutes you should have a response back. First you get an automated response to say received your order, but then within minutes you get a response back from somebody on the OLIMP side saying, okay, we found you a warehouse. Here's the cost to redo these pallets for you. Would you like to book this order? They click yes in our portal. It sends them the information for that warehouse. So lots of technology involved and very automated in some ways, but it's also still a people business, right? We're essentially acting as a broker of warehouse space or more correctly, warehouse services in this case. And because of that, I've got people who work for me who are, having that conversation with the warehouse provider every day. Say, hey, got this order from the customer. This is what we're looking at. Can you do it today? Are you guys still open? Do you have space and time? Try to automate that as much as we can to make it faster for our customers. But overall, it's a people and relationship business, and a lot of what happens here every day is that quick phone call and say, hey, I've got a good order in your area. You want to grab this, right? But from the warehouse side, we've created we call it a load board, which I'm an old freight broker. Calling it a load board for me was kind of like, well, it's not actually loads, but it's a job board. And if you've got a warehouse in whatever, Bolingbrook, Illinois, or Garland, Texas, and there's a warehousing job that comes up through our customer submission in your area, the system will ping you and say, hey, we've got a job, you want to do it, give you all the details, and you can go in and put a bid on that on a job by job basis. We've also got it set up so you can save rates and say, yeah, if it's cross-docking, I always want this rate, but you can go and bid on the job, look at all the details, the scope of work, and say, oh yeah, that's something I can do today or tomorrow or 2 weeks from now, if that's how the order was placed, and submit your bid. One of the nice things from the warehouse perspective of what we do is I'm not going to beat you up a whole lot on the rate. Now, I can tell sometimes, like, hey, this customer is not going to pay that for this order. Yeah. But for the most part, you tell me I need to be at, whatever, $8 a pallet handling on this. Cool. I'm going to add a little bit to that, take it back to my customer, but I'm not taking it off the warehouse side of it. We feel like our value is to the customer, saving them the time and energy of doing this themselves, saving them the logistics hassle of setting up individual accounts with all these 3PLs and having to manage all those relationships. And we're saving the warehouse the trouble of having to set up individual accounts and credit checks and all this stuff with, individual customer shipper providers. So overall, that's the basic function of the platform. Now we've expanded quite a bit into a lot more project type freight. We discovered that working with those broker customers, a lot of them don't have a warehousing team necessarily. So they're coming to us when their shipper customers say, hey, I've got a project for you, but I also need storage for 6 months, or this stuff needs to be repalletized or handled in some way, whatever. There's a warehousing component of it. That comes to us too. So our partners who are working with us on those on-demand jobs are also seeing a lot of opportunities at, actual substantial shipments and the opportunity to actually utilize some square feet and market themselves that way as well.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think obviously, you mentioned the use case there, which I think is really great of, I'm going to deliver to a Costco or a Walmart or something. I got 3 pallets damaged and, they're refusing. Like, how do I salvage this in a way without, taking it all the way back to the origin point in a sense, which I think is great. So, and I guess to clarify too, you guys are asset light, right? So you don't have like your own warehouses. You're just kind of this connector in between, which is interesting and makes sense there. So tell us a little bit about, that use case there. I think is really interesting, but tell us why, that is so, I guess potentially like impactful to a company, right? Because, not everybody, right, ships to Costco or Walmart and these big guys that have these very strict, we'll say, and stringent rules, which in my past career, like, have had to be the one disputing things like this before. So it's, they got some power, right? So tell us a little bit about like, how do these things kind of arise and like, where do you see most often like the need for OLIMP kind of appearing?
So the impact on our customer base is really fun to see, right? Having been a freight broker myself and spent a lot of time on that side of the equation, we help in all kinds of ways, some that I would never even thought of, right? We do disposals. We can do hold for insurance inspections. We can do any time that you have freight on a truck that would be better suited to be on a warehouse. Even just situations where like, I missed an appointment and it's going to be 2 weeks before I can make this redelivery. Well, you could pay a driver to lay over and take that guy off the road and essentially punish him for being a couple hours late, or for a few $100s, stash it in a warehouse and get that off the truck and we can even manage that final mile delivery in a lot of cases using our warehouse partners. But and the appeal for the warehouse side of it, I think, is obvious. We all spend a lot of time in the warehousing business looking around and going, oh, well, I've got my big customers, I've got my foundational business set, but I'm sitting here with some empty racks, and more importantly, I've got a couple of guys standing around holding up brooms today instead of doing any work. Well, if I can make $400 or $500 restacking a couple loads for carriers, handling a couple extra trucks today, that makes a ton of sense for me. And if I can do that through a platform without having to, go out and find that business myself, without having to have my sales force out looking for, because none of us in the warehousing business are saying, let me get my salesperson out looking for 5 pallet restacks, right? That's not that's not a good model for anybody from a 3PL standpoint. Yeah. But I can bring that kind of business right to your doorstep, lay it up for you, and make it easy to interact with and easy to manage. We feel like we absolutely add some value here for both sides of the equation.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm curious, like, what do you see? I mean, is that kind of like the most common occurrence that you see the need for your services is there needs to be a restack or, missed appointment or something like that? I mean, is that kind of like the most common issue?
We call that distressed freight. And that portion of our business makes up, in terms of order volume, a substantial portion, probably close to 70% of the orders that we see. In terms of revenue, it's a little bit less because obviously those project type things that I talked about they generate more dollars. So it's a bigger piece of our business on the project side. But the orders that flow through our system, I would say that the majority come through in that space of I need warehousing kind of right now. We also do a good bit of transloading and drayage at the ports, same kind of situation. Smaller customers or forwarders who don't have established warehouse relationships or don't have the volume to have established warehouse relationships, looking to someone like us to help them leverage, a little bit more business relationship and get their stuff handled.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I think it's. I'm curious, like, I mean, how common is that? Like this distressed freight situation? I mean, is this happening like a lot?
Yeah, I mean, we do. I don't want to give away too much in detail.
Sure. Yeah.
But hundreds and hundreds of orders a week of distressed freight comes through. Yeah, it's a bigger business than you would have thought. And honestly, like I said, I was a freight broker for years, and there are use cases that our customers come up with that I wouldn't have thought of that I wish I had when I was running a brokerage office. Stuff like what I mentioned before about avoiding layover charges by putting something in a cross dock, even for a weekend, right? It's not very expensive to have somebody hold, a full truckload even over the weekend. But there are situations when I was on the freight brokerage side where we'd spend a significant amount of money making sure that, we paid a driver for layover on the weekend because it costs that driver, it costs that carrier money to be off the road. Well, now you've got an easier solution for that. Like I said, disposal and holding stuff on claim inspections. Also, like I don't know how many times as a freight broker I'd have, some sort of shaky claim dispute, right? And you've got a driver who's stuck in the middle of that conversation. Just sitting there going, hey, I'm still sitting here in Hattiesburg, Mississippi with a fully loaded trailer waiting for somebody to tell me what to do. Like, well, let's help solve that headache for somebody and make it better, right? It's a bigger market than I think we expected, and it's more and more we see different suggestions. We're bringing those to our customers too, saying, hey, have you thought about this as a potential need for a warehousing service? Trying to expand that market and bring more opportunities to our warehouse partners.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to hear, right? Because there's I guess as you're describing it, like there's such a ripple effect too, right? On like people that are impacted, like you mentioned, the drivers obviously get hung up, right? And then the carriers, sort of whether they're an independent carrier or a larger group, right? Then it's like, okay, well that capacity is now stuck, it's hung up, right? Because there's something in there, and if the trailer's not empty, we can't put anything else in it, right?
Yep.
So there's potential like lost revenue, additional expenses, and costs within that there. So how does a warehousing company like a 3PL? I mean, how do they work with OLIMP, and how do they set themselves up to kind of capture some of this extra potential revenue that you're talking about?
Great question, right? So we try to make it as easy as possible. Obviously, our warehouse partners are the lifeblood of our business. If we're asset light, that means we depend on those warehouse relationships. So we try to make it as simple as possible to sign up with us. If you were to go to olimpwarehousing.com, you can very easily create an account as a warehouse to have access to our load board. No charges for being on the load board. There's no percentage take. All we really ask for is that you complete some simple registration. That's share your W-9, share your certificate of insurance. You need to make sure you have at least commercial insurance and basically the basic insurance you would have to have a building. Occasionally on bigger projects, we'll get into conversations about warehouse legal liability or some of the other coverages we might need. But once you've verified your contact information and your facility address and given us that COI for our files, all of which you can do online and happens pretty automatically, you're in and you're able to see the jobs that are available in your area and bid on them right away. Now, I would say new warehouses, anybody who's listening to this and thinking like, hey, this actually sounds pretty cool. Feel free to, after you've done that, reach out to, there's a link for our warehousing support team. Reach out to one of my warehousing support specialists, and they can help you understand how to, like I said, you can save rates in the system. And there's a button to check to say, hey, I'm okay with you auto quoting on my behalf for, and you very customizable, right? You say, I'm open these hours and these days, and I'm okay with simple cross docs if you quote these rates on my behalf to your customers. The nice thing about that is you jump to the front of the line, because if a customer bids in your area and you have automatic quoting enabled, it's not that you jump to the front of the line like by preference, but by time. Your quote goes in like that. My customer has a quote then instantly, essentially, when they've submitted that order. They've got a quote in front of them, and it's from your warehouse. And then there's still communication, and that you'll get automated message from our system that says, hey, we submitted a quote on your behalf, and then someone will follow up with you and say, okay, we've got this booked. The warehouse is, or the truck ETA is whatever, they're on the way. The system makes it very easy for our warehouse partners to upload photos. If in a rework, restack situation, say, okay, hey, the job is done, to create their final invoice and submit, say the work is completed, I'm hitting finished. The system will tell you, okay, that's, here's your payment due date and when you can expect payment on this. Like, we want it to be as simple and seamless for the warehouse to get set up with us and jump into this network as possible. And there are definitely areas in the country where we are still, there's a lot of density around the places you'd expect, but there are areas in the country where you could sign up. You could be one of the main providers for us in some of these more out of the way places as we grow this network.
Yeah. Interesting. You want to, what's like real in demand spot for anybody that's listening? Maybe they're
Oh
there.
man. So if you're listening to this, and first thing and foremost, if you're listening to this and you have a paper clamp and a heavy lift forklift that can handle paper rolls, we have customers looking for our help with rearrangement of paper rolls on trucks constantly, because those things shift, and they sometimes the state trooper tells them they can't go any farther. They need to get their load reworked, or they tip over, and their end customer says, "Man, we're not going to spend 2 hours unloading this trailer. You need to go get these stood back up." But that's a pretty specialized piece of equipment. We'll also work with you, work with warehouses in those kind of situations to help get that equipment. Like if you need to rent a paper clamp, again, we're providing a value to our customer. Tell me what it costs. If you say, "Hey, I can rent a paper clamp, but it's $1,500 for the week," okay, I will price that in with the customer and say, we can do this in your area, because a lot of times the alternative is they're going to drive 300 miles to somebody who does have that equipment, right? So that said, definitely out west, any warehouses in the sort of western 7 states out there. We are also always on the lookout for more partners in cold storage. That's a big area of demand for us. Hazmat bonded facilities, customs bonded facilities. But really, I mean, we have enough work in those dense areas that even if you're saying, "Oh, well, I'm in the Dallas suburbs," great. With all the better that we have more options in those busy areas as well. But yeah, out west especially, the mountain states is a big area for us. I'm sure if you have a warehouse in Nebraska, you've probably heard from somebody like, "This is the only place I could find in 200 miles." Well, it's nice to have those. Nice to have those in our back pocket when somebody needs some help out there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when somebody's out there in the cornfields, right, and like, nothing for another 100-something miles right away. So, very interesting there. And so I'm curious too. And it sounds like obviously like a lot of opportunity there too for warehousing companies to add a potential additional stream of revenue in some cases, which is fantastic for sure. So. I'm curious, like from the on-demand perspective, right? It's on-demand warehousing. So, I guess like how on-demand is it? I mean, do you see like people that, this is turning around like same day within a few hours, or is it like a couple days, or how does that kind of work?
Sometimes within an hour, within a half an hour, you've got a truck on the way to your warehouse. And I say that we also have stuff that's got a little bit longer time frame, especially projects, but we try to be to our customers a quick and easy solution. And I've had situations where I've had a customer come and say, "Hey, I had a warehouse situated for this project. It's 4,000 pallets." And they just backed out on me. They declared bankruptcy. They're out, and I've got containers on the water. I'm going to have product the end of this week. Can you help me find a place? And we've pulled that off and found that partner with the available space that could handle that business and placed it. So yeah, it happens pretty quickly in our world, and we're doing everything we can to make that as quick and easy for our warehouses as well. So we've got in development now and hopefully out soon, thinking the first half of this year, an app for our warehouse partners where they're going to be able to, the feedback we've gotten is one of the hardest things about this on-demand thing, right? Is if you work in a warehouse, you're not necessarily sitting at a desk. I sit at a desk all day because I'm a salesperson, but if you're out in the warehouse, you might be, doing stuff all day long. You're not necessarily sitting in your computer, hitting refresh, looking at our load board. It's great that we do the notifications and you get an email that works pretty well, but so much better if you could have that on your phone, see that job come up and make your quote right there from the phone app. So that's coming soon. We're pretty excited about that. And then, we keep adding features. We keep adding services to our auto quote lineup where we say, okay, you can save a rate for, I think we're adding transload most recently. You can save a rate for transloading of overseas of import containers, and we'll bid that on your behalf. With your approval, we'll bid that on your behalf for your open times as needed. So anything we can do to make it faster for the warehouse, we want to do. But our customer's expectation, that freight broker mentality is, "Hey, I've got a problem right now. I don't need a restack 4 days from now. By that time it's over," right? So we do a lot of our work really on demand, meaning like on demand, like, hey, it's 4:30 in the afternoon on Tuesday, and I need a warehouse before I leave for the day. All right, well, we'll get cracking on that and see what we can do.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Like I needed an answer like an hour ago, right? Kind of thing, definitely. So very interesting there. And I'm curious, like from the warehouse side too, right? If they're like on your platform, right? If they're part of this OLIMP network, I guess. Are there ways that they can like post or say like that, let you know, like, hey, we have this week coming up for us is going to be like pretty slow, so we're going to have extra capacity, like, can you prioritize us or something like that?
So that's a feature we're working on automated. Okay. Like you can always do that. You're gonna, if you start to work with OLIMP, you'll get to know we call them PSMs, partner success managers. You'll get to know the operations people pretty quickly, because you're going to have those conversations even when a good part of the order is automated and happens via the technology. Like I said, it's still a people business. You're going to have, Mike from OLIMP call you and say, hey, I'm sending this truck over. Here's what they expect. Tell the driver this, whatever. There's always instructions and a little extra conversation to have. But the fastest way to do that right now is to reach out to those people, and say, hey, Mike, I've got a customer moving out here, and I'm going to have 2,000 pallet positions open, for long-term storage. You want to try to help me fill that? We will go out, and your operations folks will get that over to my sales team and say, hey, we've got space in whatever, Dallas or Atlanta or Orlando that we could use. What are you hearing out there? Because we're developing on the customer side. I said a lot of our business is brokers and carriers, but we're also developing a pretty good network of shippers that work with us as well. And that's a little bit different pace of freight, but has been very beneficial for us and for those customers as well. There are major manufacturers and retailers and people who need both on-demand stuff, right? You think about it from a retail perspective. We're always trying to work into this, could we be the preferred provider for your restack, rework type jobs? But beyond that, there's overflow warehousing. There's seasonal demand. There's manufacturers that need to move stuff out, because they're ramping up for, a big seasonal push, and they just say, hey, I don't need to open a building, right? I'm not going to go to a huge 3PL provider and have them set up an entire building for me. What I really need is just 3 months where I can stick 2,500 pallets off site and then come pick it up again, right? So that kind of work is out there. And again, like, I spent years as a freight broker explaining how I could connect the dots between shippers and carriers, that where the scale of those operations maybe didn't match up, where that salesperson from that carrier was going to walk into a Kraft Heinz and say, okay, I want to haul your freight, right? That's not necessarily available. It's kind of the same thing that we're doing on the warehousing side. If a customer, a major manufacturer says to me, to OLIMP, I need across 6 different locations in the country, I need between 1,500 and 2,500 pallet spaces for overflow. A mom and pop warehouse is going to have a hard time meeting that person's needs in a way where they're really even going to be willing to have that conversation. But I can bridge that gap. I can be that conduit to say, hey, yeah, I've got 6 locations for you. And it's 6 mom and pops. It's six independent warehouse providers who are able to manage that freight. It all comes together really nicely for us. And we're even working on a WMS system, very light WMS, that we'll provide to our warehouse partners to use to track exactly that kind of freight. If we've got a customer who's got product in 3 different locations, they want to have one single place to look at it. Well, I can set that up for you, but then also give you some simple WMS tools that you can use for your own building to just, to manage your own stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. To streamline that a little more. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like, obviously definitely opportunity there for warehouses and, obviously there's warehouses that get stuffed to the gills and probably over capacity, but there's certainly a lot out there that have, capacity additionally, whether it's just space on the dock or, a couple of 1,000 square feet here or there, or just from a labor perspective too, because it sounds like some of this stuff can turn pretty quickly as well.
For sure.
A lot of opportunity to drive additional revenue there and also fill in some of those gaps as we see this kind of volume, valleys and things of such, and maybe potentially also too, help to keep some and retain some staff and give them some work and hours, which is always a great thing to be able to do, especially when you have some good employees. So I'm curious, you talk to a lot of warehouses, I imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as you talk to them, like what are some of the, kind of biggest challenges that you're hearing from them or seeing just like in the warehousing market right now?
One of the things I keep telling people since I got into the warehousing side of the business more than
Sure.
the freight side is, we all talk about, and like my LinkedIn network, everybody's talking about the freight recession and the impact on carriers and brokers. And
Mm.
it's bad out there. It's bad out there for everybody. But all that freight sits somewhere too, right? And it's affecting the warehouse business substantially too. People are bringing in less product. There's less imports.
Mm.
There's less demand through the whole supply chain and the consumer side. So there's less stuff moving, which means less space being used. And I've heard from some partners that we're also seeing stuff sit still longer.
Oh,
And when you slow down that velocity, sure, you're getting storage for the space you're using. But if you expected to turn, whatever, 1,000 pallet positions twice a month, and you're turning them every 6 weeks instead, that has an impact on revenue. That has a real
sure.
impact on sort of your bottom line. Not to mention, like you were talking about labor, right? How am I
Hmm.
going to keep my staff busy so that I have staff when I need it? But when there's not work to do, there's a real economic reality there of, okay, yeah, I don't want to put people in a position where they're not getting paychecks, but also
Yeah.
I can't, as a warehouse owner manager, I can't pay people to not work. And
Yeah.
so I think, I was at a conference a couple weeks ago and heard a lot of talk about, again, hopefully this market's starting to turn around in the next 6 to 9 months. And I hope it hits soon. But I think our warehouse partners are talking about kind of the same struggle as our freight partners are, and that's just that there's
Mhm.
not enough work out there for everybody to do. Now, fortunately for the warehouse folks, and as opposed to the carriers, they didn't all necessarily go buy brand new equipment in 2021 when things
Mhm.
were booming. So we just got to hang on and be there when there's freight to fill up those spaces again.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting perspective on kind of the impact of warehousing in there too, as well. Because like as you mentioned, I mean, obviously there's revenue from storage, but like real revenue comes through like throughput and volume, right? Like we don't want to just become storage solely, right? We want to have some
Right.
movement because there's more opportunities for revenue there potentially when we do that. So very interesting to talk about this today with you, Dave, and really interesting to learn about kind of the opportunities that you're creating for warehousing businesses out there to add some additional streams of revenue and potentially do some economic protection there, as we just talked about. And really interesting to do that. So if people are interested in potentially joining the OLIMP network or finding out more about your services from either side of the table here, what's the best way to do that?
So olimpwarehousing.com. That's OLIMP warehousing.com. That's our website. It's both customer facing and warehouse facing. You just,
Mhm.
sort of click to where you want to go. Also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn all the time. And specifically for the warehousing side, if you were to email warehousing@olimpwarehousing.com, that connects you directly to our team of specialists, and they're happy to try to help get set up too. But this whole team, everybody who works here is great, and everybody wants to try to help warehouses get set up and be successful in our platform. So
Mhm.
reaching out any of those avenues, you're going to get somebody to help, kind of hold your hand and get you into the mix.
All right, fantastic. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in these show notes here so people can find it easily. So, Dave, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and for more content from the New Warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes, and for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.